Hello, my name's Ben Brain. In this video lesson I'm going to show you how you can create this wonderful artistic image. We're going to start off with our rather bland plain flower image, and then using a cunning combination of layer masks, blending modes and these textures we're going to combine all the elements together so that we can come up with this lovely image. I'm even going to show you how you can add this nice arty border too. So let's highlight our three asset images. Double click on them to open them from Bridge into the Photoshop CS5 window. Okay, let's go to our flower shot here, and let's just move our layers panel just a little bit out of the way, and you can see first of all we just want to create a duplicate layer. So I'm going to just do a right click on there and create duplicate layer. Best practice, let's rename that layer flower, and there we have our new layer appear there. Now let's go to our first texture. Incidentally, this is the inside of a roasting tin, and let's just go to Control A to select all the area. You can see the marching ants that come around the edge, and let's just go to Control C to copy that, and let's just paste that into our new image there. Let's just move the layers panel a little bit to the side. You can see actually that it's not quite the right size, but we don't need to panic about that. We can just go to Free Transform, Scale, and we can just use some of these grabbers just to make sure that we're grabbing all the right corners, and we can just bring that down. Nothing much to worry about there because it's just a texture layer. So let's double click and that's okay. What I'm going to do is just going to do exactly the same with the other layer, and Control A to select it all, Control C to copy, and back to our original layer, and I'm going to Control V to paste that in, and you can see that looks about the right size. Now I'm just going to hit F just to change my view mode, so now we can just concentrate on this image, and let's close that out of the way for the moment, and let's get back to this layer and do a bit of work on that. First thing we want to do is just change the blending mode, and we can do that by going to the drop down at the top of the layers panel, and we're going to go down to overlay, and then you can see that the texture is just beginning to come through in quite a nice little way. And you can try a number of the different blending modes for different effects. Some will work better than others, but it's worth just familiarizing yourself with the way that these blending modes encourage the layers to interact with each other differently. But we're going to use the overlay for this particular exercise. Okay, let's also just go down to this little icon here and create a layer mask, and then if we select a black brush from our tools palette, we can also just start tweaking some of the areas here. So I'm just going to use the square bracket key, the right hand square bracket. You probably see it on the keyboard there. I'm just going to get rid of that because I don't really like that little bit there. I want a more sort of subtle effect. The rest of it is actually looking pretty good. We could just change the opacity just down to about 60% there, just to get rid of some of those sort of slightly harder effects. But I kind of like the way that this is just coming over the flower here, so I think we can pretty much leave this layer as is. Now let's click on the layer above, and this has got a lot more texture, so let's just create a layer mask for this layer too. Whoops, let's undo that. Control Z if you make a mistake, and let's make sure we're on the right layer. Create a layer mask, and let's also change the blending mode. We're going to change that to overlay as well, so again to the drop down at the top of the layers panel, and there you can see that we've just got this rather nice paint coming through. However, we don't particularly like it coming through over the flower there. It's just making the image look a little bit confusing. So we're going to use a layer mask to really mask out a lot of that area. First of all, I'm just going to select a gradient, and you can see we have the black to white here, and I'm just going to just mark out on the layer mask, and you can you see in the layer mask here it's just coming through. I'm just going to go a little bit more, and then I'm just going to use the brush, switch to the brush tool, switch to the white tool just to get that, to paint back some of these areas using the square bracket. I'm just going to come in and just sort of work a little bit around there. Can you see? And it's again it's sort of subject to your personal taste. You can just switch between black and white, and then you can just see that we're getting these multiple textures coming through on the left hand side here, and you can see our layers mask there where we're just hiding the flower. So you can see it's just bringing some nice, wonderful, nice textures into the image, and it's really giving it an artistic sort of edge already. So next I'm going to show you how to make a little border. Before I do that, I'm actually just going to create a couple of adjustment layers just to tweak the effects of the image. And first of all, I'm going to go to curves. I'm just going to add a little bit of contrast. This panel's just hiding down here. And I'm just going to add a little gentle S-curve, so a little bit up with the highlights, down with the shadow areas, and you can see that that's just increased the contrast just a little bit, and that's boosting the image. And if you decide you don't like it, of course it's adjustment layer, so you can go back and edit it out. I'm going to now choose the burn tool from the tools palette on the left hand side. I'm going to make sure I'm back on the flower layer. I'm just going to burn in just a little bit of this areas where it's just that contrast has just blown those highlights out a little bit. So I'm just going to bring those back. Let's go back to the top of the layers palette, and I'm going to create one more adjustment layer, this time for the vibrance, and I'm just going to bring that down to about -20 just to take a bit of that saturation out. Again, totally re-editable, so if we want to bring that back in again at a later date, we can. Okay, so now to make the border, let's go up to image, canvas size, and I'm going to make sure that relative is checked and make it just 5 centimeters bigger on all sides. So let's just click OK, and you can see that we have a nice white border. Now I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to undo that. I'm going to create a new adjustment layer with a solid color, and I'm going to actually specify that that is white. So let's just click OK, and you can see it's obviously totally hiding our image. So let's just go and get the opacity slider so we can just see what's happening underneath. And then I'm going to select the rectangular marquee tool from the tools palette on the left hand side. I'm just going to make sure that my layer is highlighted there. I'm just going to mark out an area just inside, and this is where our frame effect's going to be. Actually, let's just do it a bit bigger. Let's just do it a bit bigger just for effect, and that's looking quite good. And now we want to just fill this area with black, so let's just go down to fill, and we can see we've got black checked there, and you can see we just got the inside, and our image is now returned. Now I'm just going to deselect, Control D to deselect, and you can see now we've got this soft sort of white opaque border, but I don't want it to look like that. So what I'm going to do is just go to the brush palette on the, select the brush, go to the palette here, and I'm just going to look for a nice big wet brush. I'm going to pen that, and I think we're going to go for something like this. So let's just double click on that, make our brush a little bit bigger, and I'm just going to hit Control and the plus key, and then use the space bar just to grab, and we're just going to just add some effects here. So we got our black brush, and you can just see as I start painting that we just start getting some of the effect coming through. And we can even change this so it's a bit whiter, and we can change the opacity of our brush, and we can just start working our way around. And look, this wet brush is really good because it just looks a little bit, it's got that sort of wet edge, so it makes it look like we've just made a Polaroid transfer. So we can be a bit rough and can just sort of go around. We just want to take the hardness off, and you can see it's just can start to look quite good quite quickly, and we can just be a little bit rough because that's exactly how this effect's meant to be. So let me just pause this, and I'll go around and finish the rest of it, and then we'll just take a last look. Okay, so here we are with our final image.